Hello everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Homebrew Heaven, and today we're going to be talking about rules for factions. So, one of the biggest goals, I believe, for a lot of DMs is to create a world that feels like it's living and breathing, so to speak. A world that doesn't just revolve around your players, but that will also move by itself without their input partially. The world, well, it doesn't just revolve around you, and the same should go for your D&D world, where even if the players don't move or decide to ignore something, other NPCs and other factions, guilds, syndicates, whatever, are still gonna be moving in the background, and this is a sort of system I designed that helps me represent their movements and their successes in the background. So, the way it works is obviously you've got each of your factions. You're going to have them separated out, and you're going to have under their little sections, I suppose you could call it, their motivations, their methods, and their goals. And this is going to help you sort of discern what to make of the roles you'll be doing. So, say for example you took, let's say, a guild that was loyal to your god of nature. Their motivations might be to spread the word of their god, might be to increase the dominance of nature, plant more gardens and stuff in their cities, make sure all the forests and local fauna are healthy, things like that. And their methods, maybe they'll go out of their way to find artifacts of their god, holy symbols. Maybe they'll go out of their way to sort of treat the local populations of creatures and plants to make sure they grow and prosper. And now let's say for me, if I were to use this on this example that I've just sort of made up on the spot here, I would roll either a D20 or a D100. Just like a normal roll, the higher the roll is, the better the result is. Except instead of applying to a player or an NPC, this applies to how successful the group was over this time period that you've been rolling for. So let's say we take this random group that is the sort of druids of a nature god, and let's say they roll an 80 on a D100 or a 15, 16 on a D20. Now you might take that result and say, well, in this week they found an artifact that helps nature prosper and evolve within a certain radius around it. Or you might say they had success in creating a new creature that roams around, or a new magical type of plant, or what have you. Obviously, the type of success will go up as they continue. Like, say they roll a 90, you're going to want to give them maybe a more powerful artifact or a significant one in the history of the realms that they've maybe gotten their hands on. Or they had success creating a new obedient type of creature that they can use to enhance their farming, or maybe for battles, if that's a thing that they're interested in, that they can now domesticate with their magic. Now, obviously, on the lower end of the spectrum, you're going to say they roll like a 40, maybe around 40 to 60 range, kind of. Nothing happens. Maybe they go a little bit forwards in their plans or a little bit backwards. But you get to the 30s and 20s, and maybe they had an artifact stolen from them. Maybe one of their churches were burned down. Just, if it's a lower result, you kind of want to have that group negatively affected, or just stagnant, depending on how exactly you want to run the competency of the group. And this is just to help see how factions progress over time. So, essentially, the way this works is that if you do it right between every session, assuming you have a bit of downtime, all of your factions will be moving in the background. You'll have it written down exactly how, what, and why it happened, ideally. And this means that even without the player's inputs necessarily, some of the things in the background are moving, breathing, living. Now there's several other examples I could use here. Like, for example, say a crime syndicate, or something of that nature. Well, a higher result would be maybe they pulled off a big heist and got a powerful item, or maybe they somehow found legal loopholes, finagled their way into getting a key piece of land in a region, or maybe they earned a favor with one of the region's rulers. And a lower result might be, say, that heroes ended up actually raiding one of their bases and killing a lot of their men, weakening them for a time, or one of their higher-ups got found guilty of a crime they had committed and sentenced to death by the king, or what have you. There's just generally a lot of potential in this system where you sort of keep your factions moving around, and it also leaves room for the players to intervene, and that perhaps, say, your players do a raid on something or assist a faction, you might want to give them a plus 10 or plus 20 on the roll if it's the D of 100, or a minus 10 or 20 if it's a negative thing they did, or plus 2 or 3 on the D20, or minus 2 or 3 on the D20, depending on what exactly it is. There's just generally a lot of potential in this idea,